Ezra and I recently released a free course on how to create double exposures in Affinity Photo. This course covers the best techniques for creating double exposures and will walk you through 4 start-to-finish projects. Each of these projects builds on one another so that you can quickly master all the skills you need for double exposures. In this video, I'm going to share the first project of the course with you so that you can get a feel for what this course is all about. Let's get started. The first thing we need to do is open our 2 exercise images. You can do this by pressing Command or Control O. Next, we'll copy and paste the water photo into the same document as the woman. After that, you can close the water photo. Next, we'll press V for the Move tool, and then resize the water. To resize the water perfectly, you'll need to have snapping turned on, which you can do by pressing on the red magnet at the top. Now we'll zoom back in by pressing Command or Control 0. At this point, I'm going to rename our layers by double-clicking on their name and giving them a name that is more descriptive. Because this is such a simple project, it's not totally necessary to rename our layers, but it's still good practice to do. Once your projects get more complex, it's easy to get lost. Renaming your layers helps you stay organized. To turn our entire document black and white, we'll apply an HSL adjustment. You can do that from down here, or you can use the shortcut key, Command or Control U. Then, we just need to bring the saturation down to 0%. We want to use black and white images for our double exposure effect, because blending 2 images is easier when you only need to worry about blending exposures, not colors. Also, I want to point out that we're using an HSL adjustment instead of a black and white adjustment, because I found that an HSL does a better job at preserving the photo's luminosity. Sometimes, a black and white adjustment will make things lighter or darker in addition to removing their colors. All we want is the color removed. Before digital photography, photographers would make double exposures by taking 2 photos on a single strip of film. They would take an underexposed photo on the film strip, and then take another underexposed photo on the same film strip. Then, the light from the 2 pictures would be added together to form a photo with the proper level of brightness, as well as a fun effect. We can simulate this in Affinity Photo by using the Lighten Blend Mode, which only reveals the parts of a layer that are lighter than the parts of the photo directly underneath it, thus leaving us the lightest parts from both images. Pay attention to what happens to the light parts of the water, as well as the dark parts, as I change its blend mode to Lighten. As you can see, the light streaks of water are still visible, but the dark parts of water are now hidden because they're not lighter than the underlying layer. That's the magic of the Lighten Blend Mode. One reason that blend modes are so powerful is that we can adjust how much of the water is being shown by adjusting how light or dark the water is. To do this, we'll apply a levels adjustment by pressing the shortcut key, Command or Control L. Then we'll make the levels a child layer to the water so that the water is the only thing it will affect. By using the levels adjustment, we can darken the water's shadows, brighten the highlights, brighten or darken the midtones, lighten the shadows, or darken the highlights. As an example, if I darken the shadows in the water, then more of the water will disappear, since the Lighten Blend mode is removing the dark parts of the water. I still want most of the water visible though, so I'm going to set this slider to just 3%. If I turn the levels on and off, you can see how it's making the water slightly less visible. In addition to using a levels adjustment, we can also use a mask to hide the water from specific areas. Personally, I don't like how the water looks in these areas. Let's use a mask to hide those parts of the water. With the water layer selected, press on the mask icon to apply a mask to it. Then, click on the mask to select it. Now, we'll press B to get out the brush tool, and make sure we're painting in black with 0% hardness, 100% opacity, and 100% flow. Now we can paint on the photo to hide the distracting parts of the water. I don't love the way the water is covering her elbow and arm, but if we mask them out completely, it looks a little off. So I'll undo that, and instead we'll mask these areas away just a little bit by changing our flow to 10%. Now I really like how the water is blending in with the woman. We can see how much our mask is helping by turning it off and on. I also want to show you how our double exposure would look without the HSL adjustment. It still works as a double exposure, but it doesn't look quite as good. Keeping everything black and white makes it much easier to create a double exposure. But now, as a finishing touch, we can actually give our photo some color by applying a gradient map. Place your gradient map at the top of the Layers panel, or else the HSL adjustment will keep everything black and white. If you aren't familiar with how gradient maps work, you can check out our gradient map tutorial. I'll leave a link to that tutorial right underneath this video. For now though, I'm going to select the middle color stop and delete it. Then I'll make the shadows a very dark blue, and the highlights a very light shade of yellow, almost white. That looks pretty good, but I want to adjust the midtones. To do that, I'll double-click to add another color stop, and then adjust the midtones colors. I'll also make a fourth color stop and make it a little more yellow to give our photo's highlights a little more warmth. Feel free to use different colors than me, or lower your opacity to make the coloring a little more subtle. As you can see, the gradient map gives our photo a nice pop of color. We've now finished our first double exposure. Let's turn off our layers so that we can see what we started with, and then turn them back on to see what we've created. Nice work! Now that you've completed the first project, go ahead and click on the link below to enroll in the rest of the course for free. Thanks for watching, my friends, and I'll see you in the next Affinity Revolution tutorial.